The IDF announced the names of 4 soldiers killed in last night's mass casualty Hezbollah drone strike on an IDF base in Wadi Ara. The army is still investigating how the UAV reached the base without an alarm warning to soldiers to go to shelter. In the afternoon, another barrage of 15 Hezbollah rockets targeted Haifa and the vicinity, with one direct hit on a car in Carmiel. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
4 soldiers were killed and 58 were wounded in a Hezbollah drone strike on an army base in Wadi Ara, in the largest mass casualty event since the start of the war. The fallen were new IDF recruits. They were identified as Sergeant Omri Tamari, 19, from Askeret Batya, Sergeant Yosef Haib, 19, from Tuba Zangaria, Sergeant Yoav Agmon, 19, from Binyamina, and Sergeant Alon Amitai, 19, from Ramot Naftali. 7 soldiers are in serious condition after the UAV crashed into a dining hall in a Golani Brigade training base as soldiers were eating dinner. 41 soldiers remain hospitalized, with 8 in serious or critical condition. The army is investigating how the projectile breached Israeli airspace without detection. An initial probe indicated that 2 drones launched by Hezbollah entered Israeli airspace from the sea. Both were Mossad suicide drones, and their use was not unique. The UAVs were tracked by Israeli radar, and one was shot down off the coast of Haifa. Sirens sounded nearby, but not in the base. Planes and helicopters chased the second UAV, but it dropped off radar and was assumed to have crashed.
אנחנו מנהלים את האירוע, אנחנו נלמד ונתחקר את האירוע, כיצד כלי טיס בלתי מאויש חודר ללא התראה ופוגע פה בבסיס. איום כלי הטיס הבלתי מאוישים הוא איום שאנחנו מתמודדים איתו מתחילת המלחמה. אנחנו נדרשים להביא הגנה טובה יותר, אנחנו נתחקר את האירוע הזה, נלמד ונשתפר. התפקיד שלנו להגן טוב יותר על חיילינו ועל אזרחי מדינת ישראל.
Incoming Hezbollah rocket barrages are continuing in northern Israel. Today, 10 rockets were fired at the Haifa area. Most were intercepted, with no injuries being reported. Later, Hezbollah fired a barrage towards central Israel, setting off sirens in Netanya and Wadi Ara. All the rockets were downed by air defense. There are no reports of injuries.
The war in Lebanon is ongoing, with the IDF advancing in additional villages of southern Lebanon. As the IDF proceeds with the destruction of Hezbollah along the border, it's also found UNIFIL forces providing cover for the terrorists. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The Air Force pounded 70 Hezbollah sites, hitting rockets, rocket launchers, and military buildings. After a reported request by the United States, the IDF has avoided attacking targets in central Beirut for the past several days. IDF ground forces eliminated more than 100 terrorists in clashes in villages along the Lebanese side of the border. This week, the IDF began advancing into more than 20 new towns and villages used for the past year by Hezbollah to fire mortars and RPGs at Israeli communities just across the border. Defense Minister Gallant visited former outposts of Hezbollah in Lebanon and vowed that the terrorists would not be allowed to return.
אני הנחיתי את כוחות צה"ל מהמטה הכללי ומטה שכל מקום כזה לא רק שיושמד, אלא שלא נאפשר את חזרתם של המחבלים אל תוך המקומות האלה. זה הדבר חיוני על מנת לשמור את ביטחונם של תושבי הצפון.
Underlining Prime Minister Netanyahu's call for UNIFIL to leave the battlefield, the army says that Hezbollah is attempting to use UNIFIL as a shield, firing rockets at Israel from near posts manned by UN forces in direct violation of UN resolutions.
Another thing that I want to emphasize is how much we close to the UN base in your right. It's less than 200 meters from us. After we cover all what Hezbollah built over here, it's actually against every part of the 1701 decision, and actually we are standing in a military base of Hezbollah very close to the UN.
The IDF released a video of a Hezbollah fighter surrendering to IDF forces after exiting from a terror tunnel. Inside homes and tunnels, the IDF has recovered weapons of many kinds.
The weapons that we found are from mostly 2 countries, Iran and Russia, but they are also from North Korea. today we show the box of the rockets with a Russian name coming from the arsenal of the Russian army.
The army is advancing and Hezbollah missile supplies have been degraded, but it's just the start of the war in Lebanon, and it will take time before northern residents can return safely to their homes.
Well, new information has been released about the attack on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran earlier this month as the world continues to wait with bated breath to see how the state of Israel will retaliate against the regime. Let's take a look. It's been more than 2 weeks since the Islamic regime in Iran launched a barrage of more than 180 ballistic missiles at the state of Israel. While the majority of the missiles were intercepted and only one person, a Palestinian from Gaza, was killed in the strike, there was costly damage to property, according to new reports from the Israeli tax authority. The estimated damage to private property was reported to be between 150 million shekels to 200 million shekels from approximately 2,500 damage claims. Around 100 homes suffered damage from shrapnel. A restaurant in Tel Aviv was hit, and a school was hit in Gedera, suffering severe damage. On military bases, only office buildings and maintenance buildings suffered damage. Israel has yet to retaliate for the attack, but has pledged to do so on their own terms at the appropriate time. However, the long delay is raising questions about whether or not Israel really will respond, given that after the first attack by the Islamic regime, Israel responded within a week. However, Israeli officials emphasized this week that the delay is strategic and that Israel is acting according to plan. The Israeli Security Cabinet has been deliberating on the appropriate course of action along with partners in the United States, but President Biden has urged Israel not to attack Iranian nuclear sites or oil fields. Whenever the response may be, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has stated explicitly that the retaliation will be powerful, precise, and above all, surprising. Meanwhile, the Islamic regime has been preparing for retaliation by threatening neighboring Gulf countries that if Israel strikes their oil fields, they will retaliate by targeting oil fields in other third-party nations. However, as the IDF has made advancements in Lebanon, the regime has vacillated between warmongering and stating they seek peace. This week, the foreign minister of the Islamic regime in Iran visited Iraq and stated that the regime is prepared for war or peace.
برای هر وضعیتی آمادگی داره. ما برای جنگ آماده هستیم، برای صلح هم آماده هستیم. این موضع قاطع جمهوری اسلامی ایران هست.
As tensions continue to escalate across the Middle East, joining us here to discuss the current threats and the Iranian threat is Kobi Michael, senior researcher at the INSS and Miskav Institute. Kobi, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure to have you on. Tumultuous times here in the Middle East. I want to ask you, what do you expect to see from a potential Israeli strike on Iran? And will Israel have the necessary support from the U.S. to get the job done with all this diplomatic pressure?
Thank you for having me. The second part of your question is part of the answer for the first part of your question. Israel will strike in Iran, and the targets that will be chosen will be dependent on the level of cooperation and understanding between Israel and the U.S. If Israel will be able to reach to an understanding with the U.S. with regard to the destruction of the nuclear infrastructure in Iran, not in the first leg, not in the first phase of the Israeli retaliation, but after the Iranian retaliation to the Israeli retaliation, then I assume that in the coming retaliation, that I assume it will be sooner than later, Israel will target military targets and maybe some targets that are symbols of the regime or something like that. But if Israel will not reach to an understanding with the United States, and it means that it will not be able to reach to an understanding until November 5th, the day of the presidential election, and then Israel has to take into consideration that it might face a very problematic 2 months between November and January, then I assume that Israel will go all out, that Israel will attack Iran, including the nuclear infrastructure. and the oil facilities and the military targets and the regime symbols, because this is going to be one shot. This is going to be the only opportunity that Israel will have. And I assume that Israel will prefer not to miss this opportunity.
Now, when it comes to the retaliatory strike against the Islamic Republic by Israel, it's been quite delayed. It's been 2 weeks now. Do you think that this has a detrimental effect on deterrence of the Islamic Republic? Do you think it will have any impact on the strike itself when it actually comes?
No. First of all, it is totally okay that Iran is under pressure. And it is totally okay that Iran is confused and doesn't know what actually to do. And they don't have a lot of things to do in this regard because they are very vulnerable. They are not able to defend themselves as Israel defends itself. And they don't have any sort of international coalition. They have the Russians and the Chinese. The Chinese will not intervene militarily. And the Russians might help them with some anti-air missiles batteries, but not much more than that. And therefore, they are very vulnerable. This is the reason that we see all the Iranian leaders speak and declare and trying to threat Israel and even the U.S. by hinting that they will retaliate on the Israeli retaliation by attacking oil facilities in the Gulf countries, something that they know that the U.S. is very reluctant or very, I would say, disturbed about.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for your insights on this pressing issue. I'm sure we'll have you on again to discuss something similar. Thank you, Kobi Maiko.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
There's no more important time than now to stand in solidarity with Israel. And earlier this month, Jewish National Fund USA brought their 21st mission to Israel in just 10 months. ILTV's Ariel Elahiani joined them on one of their evenings. Let's take a look.
I'm here tonight in Beersheba with JNF USA, who have brought 150 individuals over from the US to Israel to bear witness as we mark the one-year anniversary since the brutal Hamas attacks on October 7th. This is JNF USA's 21st mission to Israel, and unlike previous missions where individuals have come to work and really get their hands dirty, this mission is purely for solidarity, for people to come here and stand with the communities and be united.
The Jewish National Fund USA has long been a pillar of support for Israel, and over the past few months, they've shown that commitment in a powerful way. Since December 2023, JNF USA has organized 21 delegations to Israel, offering solidarity and essential support to those affected by the recent conflicts. ILTV had the pleasure of taking part in their farewell dinner as they concluded their efforts during their We Choose Life solidarity mission this October.
It's hard to use the word celebration, but I think that if you feel the energy in the room, it's a celebration and a victory of a 3-day trip that over 150 people from the United States came for 3 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to be here, to memorialize, to feel the spirit, and then, yes, to celebrate our victory as the Jewish people coming together.
Jewish National Fund USA supporters and leaders from across the United States arrived in Israel with one purpose: to stand united with the people of Israel. The mission's timing was significant. Beginning on October 6th and ending on October 9th, participants were in Israel for the one-year anniversary of the brutal Hamas attacks on October 7th. Hundreds of thousands of American donors have empowered the efforts of JNF USA to bring delegations to Israel since October 7th, and now they've come to see firsthand how their contributions are making a difference.
With all of the pain that the Jewish people have gone through, particularly here in Israel for the last year, we feel it remotely when we're in the United States. We try to understand what we can. So for me personally, to be here for October 7th with the people that we know in the OTEF who have experienced the loss, their family members still being hostages, I wanted to be here to do whatever little I could do to be with them, to help them look forward to some better future.
Participants heard powerful stories of resilience from survivors and the Hostages and Missing Families Forum at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. The mission then visited key sites impacted by the attacks, including Yad Mordechai and Kibbutz Re'im, where they honored lives lost and dedicated a new Sefer Torah as a symbol of hope. In the north, where Hezbollah rocket fire has displaced thousands, participants saw the challenges firsthand, but JNF USA's Reimagine plan is already offering hope for recovery. This mission is unlike their previous missions where participants came to get their hands dirty and work. This time there was one clear goal: to stand beside the affected communities and show support.
We will win. Zionism will win. Because we have the future on our side. We have hope. We're resilient. We're strong. Am Yisrael Chai means something. And we will be here tomorrow, next year, in 100 years, 300 years from now, because Zionism is going to live, thrive, and get better.
A moving mission that highlights the enduring connection between these communities. JNF USA continues to play a pivotal role in rebuilding and standing with Israel during these challenging times.
New information has been released about the attack on Israel by the Islamic Republic of Iran earlier this month, as the world continues to wait with bated breath to see how the state of Israel will retaliate against the regime. Let's take a look.
In the aftermath of the Islamic Republic's strike on Israel, President Biden did not speak to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu directly for 7 weeks, a move that former President Donald Trump has come out against, calling it, quote, pathetic. Trump further elaborated that he met with Netanyahu at his home in Mar-a-Lago recently and praised the Prime Minister for being strong and not listening to President Biden.
It's pathetic. They've been at war for over a year. And he hasn't spoken with him in 7 weeks. When was the last time you've spoken with Netanyahu?
Like 2 days ago. And he came to my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, with his wife, who's lovely. But he came to Mar-a-Lago. He came to, I guess he was
I saw the visit.
At the White House, maybe the UN. I could tell you that Bibi has been very strong. He is not listening to Biden.
His comments follow the conversation with Netanyahu and Biden, in which the president asked the prime minister to scale back Israeli strikes in Beirut. The relationship between Netanyahu and Biden has been especially strained as of late due to pressures on the Biden administration over the Gaza war, but despite tensions, the two nations have remained steadfast against shared threats.
Well, initial reports have indicated that should former President Trump succeed in his presidential bid in November, he may be appointing the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, as Secretary of State or ambassador to the United Nations. Friedman, who was appointed as the U.S. ambassador to Israel by Trump in Trump's previous presidential term, played a key role in Trump's decisions to defund UNRWA and move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Friedman is known for his hawkish approach to foreign policy issues and is likely to act in accordance with those views if appointed to either senior position. Friedman was also critical in the advancement of the Abraham Accords, which saw unprecedented advancement in the Middle East in terms of trade and diplomacy between Israel and multiple Arab states, including the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. Now, as Jewish communities around the world unite for the high holidays, it's certainly not smooth sailing. Anti-Semitism across North America and Europe continues to skyrocket both on and off campuses. And unfortunately, the Jewish holidays are no exception. Let's take a look at what happened.
Yom Kippur is supposed to be a solemn day of fasting and reflection. But the holiest day of the Jewish calendar was disrupted in Toronto when shots were fired at a Jewish girls' school for the second time in 2024. Fortunately, no one was injured, but the shots were fired from a vehicle at Bais Chaya Mushka Girls' School around 4 a.m. on Yom Kippur. The same school was targeted in a shooting incident back in May. In November 2023, a Montreal Jewish school was also hit by gunfire twice in the span of 1 week. In May, a Vancouver synagogue was damaged in an arson attack, and in August, Jewish institutions nationwide received bomb threats in Canada. Jewish organization B'nai B'rith reported that anti-Semitism in Canada more than doubled from 2022 to 2023. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the attack, calling it disturbing and stating anti-Semitism is a disgusting and dangerous form of hate. In the United States, Jewish communities have also been on high alert, ramping up security for the holiday season following a shocking number of anti-Semitic incidents. On Rosh Hashanah, a Minneapolis synagogue received terrorist threats, resulting in the arrest of one. And at the University of Michigan, an armed robbery took place during the Rosh Hashanah dinner at the home of the campus rabbi. Across the world in Australia, anti-Semitic vandalism occurred on Yom Kippur when a popular Jewish bakery in Sydney was defaced with anti-Semitic graffiti. Since the October 7th massacre in Israel, Canada, Australia, the U.S., and UK have all faced an alarming increase in anti-Semitic incidents and have all struggled with illegal protests and anti-Semitic harassment both on campuses and in their communities.
ILTV and Israel Bonds were privileged to partner last week with Israeli artist and musician David Dor, who performed a touching rendition of Hatikva, Israel's national anthem. We're delighted to share that song with you today.
It's an honor to participate in the ILTV News and Israel Bonds October 7 events and to sing our nation's song of hope during a time when hope feels so hard to find.
David's heartfelt performance helped kick off Israel Bond's Invest in Life campaign. By investing $107 or more, you send a powerful message. We are united and we are committed to securing a strong Israel. Please scan the QR code and invest in life.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with lows of around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see partly cloudy skies alongside warm weather, seeing highs of about 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.